Well, good morning and welcome to the final Breakfast Extra Saturday edition for 2024. Well, gather round, dear viewers, as we bid this year a fond and slightly exasperated farewell. Because finally, it's almost over. 2024, well, if it was a person, it will be that unpredictable friend who crashes your party uninvited, drinks all your booze, starts a fight, and then leaves you to clean up all the mess. Matthew. Yet, somehow, here we are, still standing, still striving hard, still showing up against all odds. Now, let's dive into the chaotic glory of the year that has been. First off, let's look and talk about the resilience of every Nigerian and our, well, hey, nothing but warrior spirit. It's very interesting that we survived through 2024, from the endless fuel price hikes that had us all considering bicycles and donkey carts as viable transportation options, to catastrophic multiple crashes of the national power grid, 4 times in 1 week. But who's counting? Well, we've endured. We've turned power outages into candlelit bonding moments and made jokes about starting a national GoFundMe for our power sector. They need it. Yet, through it all, we've kept the lights on in our spirits, even if our living room lights were not on and pitch black at the time. Speaking of endurance, 2024 gifted us with another round of End Bad Governance protests, didn't it? From Lagos to Abuja, the chants of frustrated Nigerians rang louder than ever, fueled by the rising fuel prices that made jollof rice a luxury dish. It's a common Nigerian dish. Why was it so expensive? And yes, we're talking about tomatoes. They were priced like gold, and onions were sold in grams. And let's not forget the thrill of searching for Yahaya Bello. Man, that guy was something else, wasn't he? I mean, somehow he became more elusive than even the Nigerian power grid that stays on for only 23 hours. I bet you thought I was going to say 24. But truly, 2024 kept us on our toes, didn't it? And who could ignore the royal drama in Kano? The emirship tussle was part Game of Thrones and part Nollywood blockbuster, as political and also legal battles over traditional titles had the whole country hooked. While the Rivers State political crisis, that one was on its own, provided another dose of reality television this time. I mean, the debates over our prison systems was another one. It took an unexpected turn, with Bobrisky being in the center. I mean, imagine Bobrisky mandating legislature. It will be called the Bobrisky Act. That would be funny. But yes, Bobrisky's detainment sparked nationwide discourse about prison conditions. And hey, moments where pop culture, I guess, kind of like mixed with criminal justice reform in the most Nigerian of ways possible. And meanwhile, new insurgent groups like the Lukarawas or Lakurawas emerged, adding fresh layer to our security challenges in Nigeria. Yet, amidst the gloom and doom, Nigerians found ways to laugh, love, live, and give. I'll stop now. From viral TikToks to legendary Oju Oba festivals, a cultural display of resilience and color, we proved that joy is a weapon in our arsenal. Even as the Naira was abused both left, right, center, figuratively and literally, we found humor in the absurdity that was Nigeria for 2024, with comedians churning out economic woes and turning it into comedic gold. The year was also, well, it saw labor unions rise and wake up like phoenixes, demanding living wages amidst inflation that made basic necessities feel like luxury items. And who could forget the spirited minimum wage debates, where labor unions asked for 490,000 naira, while the government was like, take 60. And yet, they were hoodwinked, by the way. I mean, look at things now. Now, the ensuing strike action made one thing clear, however. Nigerians will not back down when push comes to shove. And then there were the fuel price hikes, because nothing screams Nigeria or this is Nigeria like queuing for hours at a fueling station early in the morning just before going to work. Nigerians are resourceful, and they turned adversity into business opportunities, with enterprising individuals selling fuels from jerry cans or on street corners, which is illegal, by the way. But let's give a round of applause to our collective hustle. How do they say it in Igbo again? Kola Maka. Did I get that right? I did? Got that right? Yeah, Kola Maka. As we get ready to bid farewell to this roller coaster year that was 2024, let's not forget the lessons that it taught us. 2024 reminded us of the power of unity in protests, the strength of culture in tough times, and the humor that keeps us sane. We are people who turn lemons into egusi soup, even when we don't have salt. So here's to our penultimate show for 2024, the year we all came together in hope, drive, and goal. May the power grid stay up, may fuel prices go down, and may our collective spirit continue to shine brighter than PHCN's best efforts. Amen. Until then, let's stay strong, stay hopeful, and stay tuned to Breakfast Extra as we commence with what is our penultimate show, like I have said. My name is Maziro Appeal, and of course I do have Judith the TB, who is the luckiest person on earth right now because she gets to give the final prologue for 2024 come tomorrow. I'm jealous of you, Judith, and I don't know what you're gonna do tomorrow. What do you have planned?
Oh, you've already done a fantastic job at it, so honestly, I don't know.
Stop it, I like it.
Well, you wanted a compliment, you've gotten it, all right? You wanted a compliment to relax, you've gotten it. But here's
okay, move on.
Yeah, but you missed something on that list. Our new anthem. We've got an anthem, a new one.
Yeah. That is true.
Yeah.
How could I Hey, put it in your prologue tomorrow.
Yeah. All hail Nigeria.
Nice.
Nigeria, we hail thee.
Exactly. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to Breakfast Extra. Let's get started with the dailies when we get back.
And welcome to another insightful edition of our Saturday lineup. Welcome to Breakfast Extra. It's the last Saturday's Breakfast Extra for 2024. And thank you for being with us. As always, it's packed with engaging stories and critical conversations here and everything that you expect. So let me just give you a rundown of what we're going to have today, okay? We're going to delve into the struggles of Plateau residents during the festive season as rising costs cast a shadow over Christmas celebrations. Also, the question is, how are families coping with skyrocketing expenses and what are the broader implications for everyday Nigerians? Well, following this, we will analyze the highlights and controversies of the president's maiden media chat that he had. He was addressing a couple of things, and we're going to address the mixed reactions from citizens, stakeholders, and critics of the president's statement, I beg your pardon. And then we'll switch gears and go to Focus Africa, where we turn our attention to Mozambique in southern Africa, where opposition parties are contesting the results of the recent elections, and we'll discuss the allegations of election fraud, the implications for democracy in the region, and what this means for Mozambique's future. And of course, on Perspectives, we will head to the streets to capture the voices of Nigerians on the ripple effects of the recent fuel price decrease. It's just, I don't know how much, about 350 naira, 100 naira, but has it really impacted transportation and the price of goods, or is it still the same? We're going to find out more from when we go out to the streets. And then finally, we'll do a deep dive into the infamous Pfizer drug trial scandal in Kano, which has left lasting scars. With expert insights, we will examine the historical context, the legal battles, and the lingering effects on public health, as well as vaccine trust in our society. So for now, let's take a look at our dailies for today.
Yes, indeed.
And we're going to get started.
The dailies, and we're going to be starting with the Punch newspaper. By the way, did you crawl into my wardrobe? I'm wondering how we got to do that.
Oh, I didn't even notice. I didn't see that. I didn't see
Very
that.
interesting.
Oh, well, that's so cool. Look at that.
It is. We're syncing, even mentally. Thank you very much.
Oh,
Take a picture.
nice.
It'll last longer. All right, let's go back to the papers now, shall we? Sorry about that, guys. We just had to
I
pick
didn't
that
even
up.
see it.
Let's start with the Punch newspaper this morning, and front and center for the Punch for a Saturday morning, we have this headline: Sokoto bombing, villagers kick as DHQ declares victims killed by terrorists' explosives. How we lost friends, family members, say survivors. It's a very sad story when you get to look into it, about the 10 individuals that lost their lives. However, the governor has swung into action, compensating with bags of rice and, of course, millions of naira. At the top, Sharia laws cause anarchy in Southwest. Traditional leaders warn, and northern leaders, others knock Tinubu for insisting on tax bills. One of them said only just a couple of days ago, I can't remember how he phrased it, but it was a threat. I think something about seeing our true colors now. And true story behind Seven Doors film Adebayo. I think I saw that series with my wife, and it was a good holiday watch. Heartbreaking tales of Nigerians fleeced by a growing epidemic of charity scams, and Ooni's ex-queen on hunger strike in Agodi prison, says mother. Our founders were detained for drumming in church, says primates, and imported food inflation hits 42% as FG duty waiver delays. So you mean that hasn't started yet? And I thought we had such high hopes on that one to try and quell the situation that we find ourselves in this present economic instance. But
downturn.
Yeah.
We'll switch away from the Saturday Punch to our next paper for today, and this is Saturday Independent. Mourning and grieving during the joyous season. Christmas of tears, sorrow, and blood. Report how my wife came back home with 3 children out of 4 husband. Passengers growing as transportation airfares soar on southeast, south-south routes. Due to inflation, many spend Christmas without food. You can find the story and more on page 8 of the Saturday Independent. At the top there, Nigeria's 2025 budget, risky gamble with unrealistic assumptions. SDP presidential candidate there says that. That's a statement from him. You can find the story on page 19. Insurgency, your response not good enough. Northern Democrats blast FG. We're now, please, let's not do this thing where we now start to vote on social political stride like they do in the U.S., where it's Republican and Democrats, and it's based
That's
off of...
bound to happen. That's
Let's not do that.
A democracy. It's going to happen.
Let's not do that here because, anyway, it's a whole different conversation entirely. So when we say Democrats, please, let's not do it. You know, anyway, at the bottom there, debt and NCC approves MTN to disconnect exchange telecommunication. That story is on page 3. Asake reportedly part ways with Olamide's YBNL. Yahoo boy, no laptop. That story is on page 20.
I haven't heard that anagram spelled out. I mean, called out.
Called out. Hey, Yahoo boy, no laptop.
That's actually what it meant.
Yeah, that's what it is. YBNL. At the bottom there.
You are so street, though.
I was raised as so everyone knows what it is.
That's good.
Yeah. At the bottom there, illegal mining activities destroy farmland in Plateau State. That story is on page 17. Parents withdraw pupils from school to make money from the trend. At the bottom there, high-ranking crimes of 2024 in Nigeria, challenges, solutions for 2025. That story is on page 29. And lastly, this one here for entertainment. I achieved what others are doing now 10 years ago. AY Macon. Everybody's journey is different. What's my own?
Yeah, stop setting your watch with another man's clock.
I don't even understand. What's your own? Everybody's journey is different.
To his defense, however, he did it without social media. I mean, without the boost of social media. So I think he deserves a bit of accolade when it comes to
there are people,
the
I don't want to say what I want to say. Let's keep it moving, shall we?
Saturday Times is what we have up next. Troops neutralize notorious terrorists Maoni in Zamfara State. And at the top for the Saturday Times, we've got SGF. Akume celebrates 71st birthday amid heartfelt felicitations. And President Tinubu mourns ex-Indian PM Manmohan Singh. Moving down to right next to the photo story here, actor Hudson Mick dies in moving vehicle accident. Ooh.
Yeah,
and under that,
fell out of a moving car. I've never heard that kind of thing. He's 16 as a teenager.
I think that explains it.
That explains everything.
Yeah, unfortunate, however.
It's very sad.
Now, Tinubu's tax reform bill, anti-North, will divide Nigeria. Bauchi governor and Access Holdings co-lords NGX invest for a seamless 351 billion naira capital rise. At the bottom here, Sokoto, Gindam, Bisa, Gidam, Rutawa airstrike achieved its primary objective, says DHQ. They're not backing down on their rhetoric on this one. They're like, we did what we're supposed to do. And I think when it comes to Nigerian defense, and I'm beginning to have this empathy for the Nigerian military, the decisions that they have to make to be able to to present us with security, present us with safety.
Yeah.
They're on the front lines, we're sleeping at home, and they have to make these very hard decisions. And sometimes, while it's unfortunate, these kinds of, I don't want to call it mistakes, these kinds of casualties happen.
Right. And it's sad, it's unfortunate. And of course, and also, I don't think that they have the intelligence. They do have the intelligence, but I don't think that they have the ample intelligence.
Is it tailored well enough?
Well enough for the type of threats that they face out in the wild. You know what I mean? Also, I don't think that as much as they are trained, they are not trained for the threat that's out there.
I'll tell you something about the new insurgents. Very strangely, they're very different from the Boko Haram, who will come together in a community and stay apart from regular civilians. This time they infiltrate, they even marry, and they continue with their nefarious activities. So it's difficult to actually pick out and say, okay, this is, what's it called, community. This is Lukarawa community, this is civilian community, and that's the stress that the army is going through right now.
Right, and that is scary. You know what I mean? Because that means a spy can be inscripted into
that's what
the military, into the police. You know, that's in.
Then there's that.
So they don't, like I said, they don't have the intelligence that is tailored for the type of threat that they face out there. And I think that these guys are getting as sophisticated as they possibly can with the support that they get from outside entities, non-state actors. And I wish that we pay more attention, and most of our resources is going there to hire the capable aid that we need in terms of intelligence, equipment, so we can completely, because just imagine somebody is that, okay, I want to infiltrate the media.
Yeah, well, that's exactly the kind of sector I would be able to.
You know, or I want to infiltrate the security outfit, or I want to infiltrate local government of so, and I'm going to run for councillorship, and then I can just spread my tentacles and get in. It's wild. Anyway, moving on to our next story. So for our next front paper, this time is the Saturday Nation. We'll move on to Saturday Nation for you there. Nigeria's president under fire at home over attack on Nigeria. Rubadu, if we refuse UK military base, why France now? Allegations aim to sow chaos in northern Nigeria. Bala. No evidence of French base anywhere in Borno. Defense expert Zagazula, I beg your pardon, says desperate politicians behind row with Niger Arewa think tank. That story there is on page 4. Find all of these on page 4. At the top there, Sokoto airstrike. Federal government will investigate causes, ensure justice, says Matawale. DHQ blames secondary explosion for death of villagers. You can find that story on page 3. And right next to it there, Christmas tragedy, gunmen kill Catholic priest in Anambra, 23 arrested for armed robbery, kidnapping others. Alaya talks tough on fresh killings in Benue. That story is on page 3 as well. It comes to the bottom there by the side. China, Nigeria renew currency swap agreement. That story is on page 4. NCAA and FAN to blacklist unruly passengers. About time. What took you so long? I need people to be banned for life. The ones that get up as the plane is landing and decide to queue, okay, like it's a BRT park, ban them. Those that are trying to get to the gate and then you just can't wait to get to the gate, and then when you get to the plane, wait for your turn, you decide to go and perch on the, what's that, the stair thing that gets you, ban them. I need people to be banned for, I need sanctions. Heavy, I need a no-fly list, okay? I'm not even joking with you. I need it instantly. And then those that don't know that you're supposed to know, like if you're sitting here, like the overhead thing on the plane, it's for the people that are sitting down there. Like those who are too loud, who cannot put their phone, who doesn't, anybody that just misbehaves.
You have grievances.
No fly lists. You know what I mean? Like I need them to be on a list.
You've got grievances.
Immediately. That thing is annoying me. You know, you don't even have anger. I'm like, we're all gonna get down, okay? It's not flying in the next 30 minutes.
It's not an aviation problem. It's a cultural problem. And it's the same problem with the guy who speeds up when you're trying to switch lanes. So that's the problem with Nigeria.
those people, license, snatch.
You even take it into transportation.
I'm vexing, snatch. I don't want anybody. I can't suffer fools. Misbehavior is just something I just can't stand.
This is her list for legislature for 2025. Is finally all right. Let's move on to the Saturday Vanguard now, shall we? We've got more papers for Judith to vent over. Saturday Vanguard's got this one. Nigeria in 2025, deepening poverty inescapable. Why the poor will be poorer, the wealthier richer. That's a very scary way. We'd like to thank the Vanguard for putting a blur this morning as against what they normally do. At the top, media chat, a letter to President Tinubu on page 26, if you want to read that. One explosion from terrorist material killed Sokoto villagers, not airstrikes, says GHQ, beginning to make sense. 2024, sighs and hisses in sports. We're going to have a sports conversation next tomorrow on the show, taking a review at 2024. Join us then. We refused England a base. We can't allow France now, says Ribadu, as he reacts to allegations from Niger. We're not that dumb. Health. Microwaving food, listen up, Judith. Microwaving food in plastic containers may harm fertility, experts warn. My wife says this all the time, but I don't know, I guess I needed to see it on the front page to believe it. Storing onions, garlic in the fridge makes them toxic. Onions and garlic. That's interesting. Your facial expression, what?
I think it's the microplastics.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so not necessarily.
No, so this is it. And now, if the camera can come back to us, because I want to explain something. There is a little insignia at the bottom of your plastic. If we can get a plastic, if anybody's got a plastic, I'll actually show it to you. It's a triangular thing with a number on it. Those indicate what you can actually use these plastics for or not. Some you can't microwave with, some you can't store with, and others. I don't have the specific nomenclature for each of these insignia, but that's how it goes. So it's already there. We just have never taken note, or we've never just been educated about it.
And that's very worrisome, right? Because and your wife makes a solid argument, right? Because I'm very concerned about the plastics. You know, we drink like
everything.
Yeah. Because you know, there was one time in our lives where you could actually get drinking water from the tap.
Oh, yes.
You know?
Oh, and Festac, yes.
You know what I mean? Like, and then every soft drink that you drink, and all the carbonated drinks, were in glass bottles. You know? And then somewhere along the line, plastics came, PET bottles came, and it became the norm, and it has gone. And you don't see glass bottles as you normally would anymore. And that is worrisome.
How much time do we have? Because there's another.
It is a conversation that needs to be had. It is
an entire conversation.
It's something that legislators, governments,
you think for 2025 we should ban plastics? We should start to look at how we can ban plastics.
You know,
you're rolling out so much this morning.
See, look,
for passengers, drivers.
And I know that we cannot take it out completely because it's jobs and industries that have been built around all of this. And so we can do this slowly. We can roll it out slowly, whether or not it's PET bottles or whether or not it's plastic containers.
You know what you're not addressing.
Or water.
You know what you're not addressing, and it's right there in front of you. Before the middle of this year, you know those big kegs of water, the ones you use for your dispensers? They used to be, I think it used to be initially from last year, 350 naira, then to 400 naira, 500 naira, 600 naira. It became 700 naira, and then I stopped buying it. Now it's about 1,200 naira. 1,200 naira for a keg. Now, pure water sachet nylon bags cost you 300 naira. So we started buying these actually at home, and I'm talking about myself because, I mean, the economy.
Times are hard.
I'm not trying to be overly bourgeois or anything, but that's what happened. So think about the effect of these multiple plastic bags, and these are nylons that have no standardization. Everybody can just manufacture theirs, and then you have your pure water inside of it. So imagine how much toxin we're drinking now in hard times.
The microplastics get to me, Marzino. You don't get it. Oh,
it's
goodness. So imagine, and this is job creation, right? And also, you talked about something, affordability of it. So we can't even take it out if we're going to scrap it out, because how are people going to get drinking water? Hence why I started with the beginning with tap water. There was a time that our tap, and if I talk now, Lagos State will come out and look, It was such a culture shock when I went to school in the University of Calabar, and I turned up the tap, and water came out.
Paradise.
A shock. That was a culture shock for me. And in fact, there are like taps scattered across the states, and because scattered across the capital and even parts of the state where you actually can go and
for free.
Yeah,
that's good. That's grand. Well, hey, how things have changed. Let's hope they change for the better come 2025 as we're rounding up this year. Hey, let's get into the thick of things for the show on Breakfast Extra. Thank you. You are in the right place. Let's get started. Oh, good morning. Welcome. Big report this time. Our very first segment on Breakfast Extra. Now, today we're focusing on the struggles faced by Plateau residents during this festive season. As we hear, it was rather quite the struggle. The skyrocketing costs cast a shadow over Christmas through last week. From rising food prices to economic hardships gripping communities, the festive cheer was met with harsh realities that demand attention. Now, in this report, our correspondent Chizoba Anionwe brings us a comprehensive look at how these economic challenges had reshaped Christmas traditions in Plateau State. Before we delve into our conversations, let's take a look, a moment to just watch her detailed package on the pressing issue.
It is no longer news that the cost of living is a source of worry for many, including the wealthy ones in Nigeria. However, the poor and lowly in the society feel the brunt more, with most of them barely able to feed once a day, not to talk about 3 square meals a day. A check at the Terminus Main Market in Jos, the capital city of Plateau State, revealed that many residents aren't finding it easy for their last-minute purchases.
This is going for 1.5. Yes, and this is going for 500. And then I'm asking her this one is going for 1K, but I should give her 500.
There are quite a number of economic policies in play that are affecting virtually every part of our lives. So food is going to be one of them, transport is going to be one of them. You know, basically trying to survive is going to be a problem because of those policies.
We are not finding it easy at all. People are not finding it easy. We are crying onto the government that they should do something.
Bought the chicken 30,000. But you know, last year, it's not like that.
Traders gave reasons for the high cost of commodities.
Before onions, 1 rubber we can sell it 130 and bought the bag 3,000. Now the bag it is almost 300,000. That now it make us they sell it expensive.
So this one now is big one. We are selling 15, 16, 17, even 20 ma. But because of no money, we are selling less ma. Now 15,000 I'm selling. The reason that the chicken cost this year because of feed costs.
At the Plateau Riders Park, travelers also lamented the high cost of transportation compared to what was obtainable before the removal of fuel subsidy.
From Jos down to Shandam, but because of the nature of this country, the fuel subsidy and other things, so the transport fare have increased from 4,000 naira to 7,000 naira.
From Jos to where I'm going to now, it used to be 3,000, but now it's 8,000.
I'm traveling from Jos for Christmas, and where I'm traveling to used to be 4,000, 4,500 at most, but today we are paying 7,000.
Obviously, it is not just the prices of foodstuffs in the markets that have increased. Transportation costs is also on the high side, and so the cry of the masses is that government steps into this matter to make life more meaningful for everyone. In Jos for New Central, Chizoba Anionwe.
And thanks to Chizoba Anionwe there for that very insightful report. Now, joining us now to provide more insight into this story is business executive Christopher Obaji. Well, Christopher, many thanks for joining us. I appreciate you for doing this. I must start by saying that the numbers of the vegetables, the price of the vegetables that lady was calling out, green pepper is going for 500 naira in Plateau, in Jos, where it's supposed to be like water. It's no difference. And here, the commercial hub of Nigeria, the city capital, or should I say the commercial capital of Nigeria. And so it begs to ask the question of, you know, what has really caused this prices and this food insecurity and this soaring food cost of living that we're seeing for Nigerians, especially in festive season? Let's start there.
Yeah, actually, in every celebration time, like as we all know in Nigeria, everybody is taking chances, but taking opportunity of every celebration, most especially the Christmas time. And it's becoming worrisome because people don't make budget anymore before going to the market. And distributors, those times, hijack some of those commodities, the big buyers. They use their financial power to hijack most of those commodities, keep it during this period, they use it to make more money for themselves. And another thing again is the fact that everybody needs this commodity to make life meaningful and to also enjoy the Christmas season. And one of the things again that I've seen as one of the thoughts is that there's no price control. Government has not actually stepped in to see that they can encourage the big buyer and to also see how to regulate the market. And again, sometimes transportation, bringing out those commodities to the market from the farms or from the market where they buy from is also an issue. So it has really made it a worrisome situation such that people don't go to the market budget anymore. They only buy what their money can buy. And again, you can see many people are crying because the commodity that are common, that seems to be common, that are mostly used in this season are just skyrocketing. They are going up by the day. The steel that was sold in November for 2,000 or 1,500 or 1,800, especially tomatoes, pepper, onions. And now it's sold for almost 4,000 5,000.
So you think that people are trying to make a profit because it's the festive season, and it's not necessarily that the food prices have hiked due to economic downturn or anything of that nature? That's what you're saying, just to clarify.
Yes, before now, the economy is not smiling anyway. We know that the economic is hard, things are hard due to the removal of the fuel subsidy. But again, it's just an opportunity for the big buyer, that is the distributors, those who buy from the direct source. They usually use their financial power to hijack this because they know that it is most that people want to also celebrate the Christmas time. So the Christmas period is also another factor that is making it this high in the market. But I must say that generally the economy is not smiling.
Right.
And you can see how poverty brings every house. Even the rich are also facing it. The poor time, the rich are now also smiling because people demand more them also to survive. So it is a difficult time for everyone, most especially just Plateau State. The situation is not friendly. The situation is not easy one. It's a difficult time. Many are trying, even in their localities here, that is, many cannot even buy rice. They use this local to be called gote. So during the Christmas time, you hear many people say, we can't buy rice, we can't even buy chicken. What we use is gote. So even go to neighbor's house to ask food and all that, just because of the high cost of price of food. They can't purchase. The purchasing power is low. So having it that they are not finding it easy to get some of those commodities.
Right.
So most times bounce back on the big buyers, the distributors that have this commodity and make it difficult for them.
I mean, Christopher, it just what bothers me about your submission there is that the traders they can't even make sales the way they normally would. You can't make profit like you normally would, but then you hike up your prices because of the festivities. How then are you going to make sales during the festivities when you are not even made enough profitable sales before the festivities. It just, I don't know.
I've got
yeah.
To jump off of that, Judith, the question I'd like Chris to answer here is there any, perhaps maybe movement from the governments in trying to alleviate what's going on right now? In Abuja, the FCT minister actually helped with transport fares, slashing it by half.
Yep.
So in Jos, is there any indication that the government is seeing what the people are going through and hoping that, or actually moving to try and see if they can take this suffering off of the people? You mentioned price control. Is there any talks on price control? Are there any bodies that have come together to try and push the government to also into this kind of action?
I think in reality, I've not seen any government effort in terms of controlling prices in justice. Most effort is mostly from most of the programs in TV stations, radio stations, where people call to see how to encourage sellers, to see how to manage price. But in terms of government specifically addressing the situation or try to put in one measure or other to see that price control is there or checkmate, that I've not seen any effort of such in the government. I think it is just individuals, concerned individuals, non-governmental organizations, people who actually want to see how things get better for, most especially for the mass, for the poorest in the society. The one I think making an effort to see that that conscience here, the buyers and sellers, and by the distributors, the seller, to see how to make it the market. But in terms of government effort, I will not say that there's any effort there because
Christopher, are you still there? Okay, yes, you are still there.
I think, not making a move. If the government were to make a move, do you think that a price control would be effective, or do you think that maybe transportation / palliative distribution? What measures would you like to see the state government do to sort of alleviate just the people in purchasing power and like food security going into 2025?
Yes, I think government has a lot of power. Assuming government come in to see how to regulate in their own effort, I think things of that nature will be better. The price issue. And again, one of the things that I'm saying this is because when you look at the terminus market previously before now, the situation, the arrangement of the market was something alarming, but government was able to manage and protect the situation. Many shops were put up of the road and all that. So if they can also use that means to step in the market, just as they can regulate and manage the market in terms of putting it in well condition for people to sell, also from government for them to be able to have a better secure environment. If they can also use that effort in terms of price control, I think they can be able to do something that will help to make life easier for the market. But in this regard, I have not seen any government effort to manage the situation. So government has a lot of power and a lot of energy to see that the situation is managed in the following manner.
Christopher, Mazino.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Christopher, I'm wondering, do you see these prices, these hikes coming down in 2025? As we know, Nigeria, things go up, but they don't come down. But let's just say, hopefully, do you think that these prices will come down come 2025?
Most times it is based on demand. The reason why some of these prices are high is because of the high level. And I believe that the price can come down as soon as the festive period is over. where at least the level of demand is low, not that high. So we have no any other choice to bring down the cost. There's high level, there's that, I'm optimistic that that can happen because of let's be sincere. The reason why there's rush, the reason why this price is up is because there's high level of demand. So everybody want to celebrate, everybody want to bring season, everybody want to play, everybody want to enjoy with loved ones. So everybody want to put this in place to ensure that there's everything available to make it life better, make life easier, make life enjoyable. But as soon as the season is over, when the demand is low, people are not rushing to commodity anywhere. But definitely, it will naturally come down, it will drastically come down to zero level. So it's just because of the rush, because of the season, that's what.
All right. I mean, Christopher, I do hope that you had yourself a wonderful Christmas in spite of the price hike, and you know, I hope that yourself and your family found ways to still keep tradition and just, you know, try to find, try to keep with the festivities and enjoy yourselves in spite of all the price hike. We must say thank you, Christopher, for taking out the time this morning to join us with this discussion. It's been very insightful. We want to say thank you so much again.
Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Christopher Baji there is a business executive, just to give us a bit of insight on just the price of food in Plateau State, of how the price have increased significantly.
And this is across Nigeria, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to point out something.
Right.
From the package, which Chizoba, what was it? What was the item? Oh, the chickens.
Chicken.
15,000 naira just. Have you bought chicken in Lagos? How much was it? 25,000 naira.
I don't know. We killed good. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
In the upper echelons.
Yeah, I shouldn't have said. I don't even know what I said. I shouldn't have said that. Yeah.
Now we know where to go from the 1st of January.
Well, it's a lot, family. It was like okay, you know, I'm just going to keep quiet at this point.
It's all good. All right, do stay tuned. We've got more coming your way as we take a look at the president's media chat in just a bit. Stay tuned.
Lost an eardrum. All thanks to Raji. You're welcome back. It's time for our big story for today, and it's where we take a look at, you know, we delve into the much anticipated moment in the maiden presidential media chat by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. You must have seen the videos. It has sparked a spectrum of reactions across the country. Now, from economic policy shifts to governance priorities, the president addressed pressing issues, leaving Nigerians both intrigued and divided. Now, while some lauded his composure and brilliance, others expressed dissatisfaction, calling it an unsatisfactory performance. The chat also touched on key subjects such as the strengthening naira, a surging stock market, subsidy removal impacts, and plans for combating insecurity. The chat, however, has not been without its critics. Many have questioned the depth of the president's responses, especially on critical issues like Nigeria's power sector woes and rising inflation. Now, these mixed reactions highlight the divergent expectations of Nigerians and the enormity of challenges facing this administration. To help us, you know, just have a bit of insight into this, we have a very honorable guest joining us. I'll let Mazino do the honors.
The honors indeed. Devo Corey, social analyst, is joining us this morning. Devo, thank you very much for joining us. Now, Devo, before we start, I'd like to warn you that somewhere in between we might be going on the news, so this conversation will continue after. But let's begin. Devo, first off, your first take on the president's maiden media chat. Were you satisfied?
Well, thanks for having me this Christmas period. I guess 'tis the season to be jolly, but it's not jolly for everyone. And how I normally start is the president I think he's still in Lagos for the Christmas celebration since this is his hometown. However, his convoys plus the presence of our brothers and sisters, the I Just Got Backs that have blocked all our roads and are partying day and night, give the wrong impression of the true picture of the state of this country, because they'll go back and tell the world that it's all fun in Nigeria, but it's not all fun. A lot of people are still groaning under the high cost of living, insecurity, kidnap, abduction, and various economic constraints, even power constraints. I mean, I spent my Christmas in darkness because many of the Band A areas are now in darkness. So with the president inviting the media first time to his house to have a chat, I wasn't satisfied on many levels. The first one actually being the media, because the media had an opportunity to give the president upfront the true facts and the state of the nation, the status quo. But it seemed as if they were a bit calm. And the president himself, unlike what we've had before, was more engaging, was even putting it to them and challenging them. So I don't think it was an interview which I was extremely satisfied about, because I wanted the president to leave that media chat saying, oh my goodness, I've not done enough, I need to do more.
I'd like to know what you thought about the president's response when it came to topics about the economy, the downturn we're having, the rising price hikes, whether in fuel or commodities, and inflation. Many people have argued that he seemed a bit out of touch with reality. I'm wondering if this is the same way you feel.
Like that's what I just mentioned now, that the president is not out of touch. Sometimes we like to treat our presidents like they exist outside the nation. They don't. Even the money that you say he spends, he needs an approval. He needs the National Assembly to approve many of the things that people say that he gets as fringe benefits. So he is very well in touch with what is happening. Whether he understands the degree or the intensity is a different question. And that's why I say, if you watch the interview, I mean, various media stations, both radio and broadcast, even online, are playing it. Watch it again. You will see this was not a president that was a bit slow. This was a president that was very engaged. He knew exactly what he was saying. Even the questions that were put to him, some of them he threw back. So my point to you is, if people felt he was out of touch, why didn't they put it straight to him? For example, the high cost of living, right? He came out clearly that he had no regrets about the removal of subsidy. And there were two fundamental economic policies that were embarked on by this administration. And he put it straight. He said, it's not affecting him, but it's affecting the smugglers. Now he's talking about the business of the nation.
Now, Devo.
Yes.
Remember, I told you that we were going to have a break in between, and here's that break. Let's do the news. Judith is bringing that to us, and when we get back, I'll let you continue on that upended. Thank you very much.
Yeah, there we go.
We'll be back. Let's do the news.
And you're watching Breakfast Extra. It's time for the breakfast headlines. I am Judith TV. Nigeria's Defense Headquarters has dismissed claims of a misfire by Air Force jets attacking several communities in Sokoto State following offensive operations against terrorist group Lakarawa. The director of the Defense Media Operations, while speaking to newsmen in Abuja, says that air operations targeted logistics hub of the terrorists, neutralizing several of them, while others fled in a bid to escape the onslaught of troops stationed on the ground. Maiden reports.
It was a briefing to clear the air on the recent allegations that military airstrikes had killed several members of some communities in Sokoto State, a situation that has sparked nationwide criticism. The director of the Defense Media Operation says that the reports are false and do not paint the true picture of the situation.
The airstrike indeed hit logistic base of the terrorists, which led to secondary explosions, and it was these secondary explosions that led to some casualties that was earlier reported. The neutralized local terrorist combatants were burnt, indeed, beyond recognition, because they were hit directly by the strikes.
He says that intelligence by the military was duly carried out and confirmed by locals within the community.
Locals confirmed that the Lakurawa terrorists stayed in the village and used the general area as a staging area for the conduct of their operations. Also, intelligence surveillance and reconnaissance, as well as human intelligence reports prior to the operation, consistently indicated the hideout was a high concentration terrorist location. The airstrike, at the end of the day, had minor impact on the surrounding villages.
He also urged citizens not to panic over the recent reports of a drone attack on a military base in the northeast, saying that drones were not military grade and did not achieve any objective.
The use of drones in the battlefield is not new. Now, when we are talking of drones now, please, we don't want unnecessary panic, because these are not professional drones, not military-graded drones. These are toys that they went to buy and found a way to put one or two things on board and use them. How effective were they? They were not effective. Are we doing something about it? Yes, we are. I don't call them really attacks, I call them harassment, because those are harassments.
General Buba also dismissed the allegations of the establishment of a foreign base in Nigeria, saying that they are mischievous and false. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
Caleb Mufang of Plateau State has revealed that the security situation on the Plateau has improved in recent months. The governor, after a visit to President Bola Tinubu in Lagos State, commended the efforts of federal government in trying to restore peace, saying that the recent Christmas holidays has not witnessed any attacks on communities, especially when compared to the same period in 2023.
Things are getting better. Security-wise, certainly we are better off this year than we were last year. Apart from the fact that the security forces on ground are doing their best, we have also invested a lot in technology. We have been able to do a lot of mobilization of communities. And so there is a lot of consciousness, that has kept people aware. And it hasn't been 100%. There have been a few incidences here and there, but on the whole, I can tell you that things are getting better. Well, with the support of Mr. President, I can assure you that we're not going to take our foot off the pedal. We're going to make sure that we cross the T's, dot the I's as far as security is concerned, and make sure that we make it more difficult for criminality to take place within our borders.
And off to the energy sector, as the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited, NNPCL, has confirmed a downward review in the price of premium motor spirit, commonly known as petrol. This move comes as part of ongoing efforts to reduce the economic burden on the citizens amid rising living costs. Previously, the product sold for more than 1,030 naira per litre in Lagos and the surrounding area, while in Abuja and the northern regions, it costs more than 1,060 naira per litre. News Central's Bettina Nwele reports the accuracy of this reduction in some few stations as citizens react. Take a look.
Reports from major cities, including Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt, indicates that the adjustment has already taken effect at filling stations. Long queues, witnessed in recent months, are beginning to ease as citizens express relief at this development.
I drive almost every day to work, and by the time you buy, before now, you buy 1,025 naira, and just to go to the island and back, you are already talking about 20,000 naira fuel, But I believe that with this reduction, at least one can be able to save a bit, because before now, sometimes I don't even drive to work. I just have to park the car, But now, At least with this reduction, one can say, okay, but we still expect more reduction. We still expect that there should, at least this competitiveness in fuel in prices, it should come down. It can still come down. We're oil producing nation. It can still come down.
Before, with 20,000 naira, you can just buy like 17 liters of oil. But last time I bought 20,000 naira, I have 22 liters. Now I'm going to buy 15,000 naira. I think I'll have like 17 liters also, which is quite, not that the direction, but it's reasonable. But across now, the other station, they are selling 107. Total are selling 107.
While some stations are still operating at the previous price, some citizens feel there is a need for further reductions for the impact to be felt.
If they are ready to drop the price of fuel, at least down to 500, it's okay. But in that case, that kobo of a 2 kobo or something is insignificant. It doesn't affect our business. So it's just yours as business as usual. You cannot drop the price because it doesn't have any effect. So we want to beg the government to help us, at least at this time now, where the transport is being so high, everything is skyrocketing. They need to help us drop the price of fuel, at least to 500. We appreciate it.
Truly, I read it on a paper that there's going to be a reduction. Meanwhile, all the dealers of petrol are yet to comply with the new price stated inside the paper. In lieu of that, I hereby regard that it's a paper talk until it comes to manifestation, where we are buying it at a low price.
The government has reiterated its commitment to maintaining a stable supply of petroleum products and addressing other economic challenges facing the nation. However, experts have cautioned that long-term solutions such as investment in local refineries remain crucial for sustainable growth. In Lagos, for News Central, I am Bettina Nwili.
And those are all we can take for breakfast headlines here on Breakfast Extra. Stay with us. There's more. I'm Judith. The team, don't go anywhere. And you're welcome back. It's time to continue our discussion of the much anticipated maiden presidential media chat by President Bola Tinubu, which has sparked a spectrum of reactions across the country. He touched on quite a number of things, from economic policy shifts to governance priorities. And he also addressed, pressing issue, the Naira foreign exchange, as well as, fuel subsidy and, the removal as well. And a lot have been talked about when it comes to his, composure and just the way he handled the matter. Some have, expressed dissatisfaction and saying that, it was unsatisfactory, while others have lauded him and said he did brilliantly well. Our guest today is Devo Kore. He's a public affairs analyst, and he's been talking to us literally just his major takeaway from the presidential media chat. But Devo, you were talking about, the economic policies and, his reaction to that before we went on the break to bring the news. But please go ahead.
Yeah, so like I did mention, the president actually did speak very attentively. It was the media that did not update him on the issues which, if they disagreed with or felt he was out of touch on, they had the opportunity to. Now, when he was speaking of the petroleum subsidy removal, which he said he had no regrets, of course, he was referring to those who had taken advantage of a flawed system and had literally taken advantage and made billions off the little that Nigeria had. So that had to be stopped. Now, although some still believe that the subsidy is still being offered in one way or the other, because all of a sudden we've had this back and forth in terms of pricing with the petroleum marketers, as well as the Dangote Initiative, as well as the NNPC. What is important is not the price of fuel, because based on the exchange rate, if it's imported, or if you buy your crude to produce the PMS, even if it's going to come back in Naira, all these affect the pricing. What is important is that we have a stable supply. So I would love Nigerians not to be pushing back and forth on price, but to be after a stable supply. We should be able to go anywhere in the country and be able to get fuel. Even with this reduction of pricing, what you hear in some stations is that they're not selling. Even NNPC in some stations are saying they haven't finished the old stock before they get to the new stock that's cheaper. So this is what I expect the president to be aware of. Remember, he is the petroleum minister. So if he's the petroleum minister, he needs to speak directly to the issues. Now, another area which I felt, even if they said he was out of touch on, I expected them to put it to him. The energy sector, which leads to the high cost of living for many Nigerians, is affected both in the oil and gas sector as well as the power sector. So when the power sector takes between 30 to 60%, depending on the industry that you are in, that is where many Nigerians cannot cope anymore, both in terms of individual and families, as well as businesses. And I felt that they could have brought that need for a state of emergency in our power industry, because the back and forth, when he asked which one of our ministers is not performing, that was clear on the table. The power ministry is not delivering. Even us that are in Band A, we're as good as people that are in Band D because we don't get the power anymore, despite the fact that we pay 3 times than we were before. This is where the productivity of this nation lies. If you fix your power industry, I expected either his international trips to France and some of the other countries, Saudi Arabia and America, even China. Where are the agreements in terms of our power sector? The Chinese have told us that they need 10 billion to ramp up our megawatts from the current 4,000 to about 20,000 megawatts. 20,000 megawatts will shift our GDP into the 2-digit range.
Right.
This is where I expected the president or the media to have taken the president on. Matters that would affect Nigerians.
Devo, I cannot speak to the organization of that media chats, but it appeared to be very selected or handpicked, the journalists who were in the rooms, not saying that they are not good at their jobs or not saying that they are not veterans in their own rights. But we wish that there was much more invitation into those rooms. But anyway, moving away from that, I would like for us to talk about a security issue as well. And what was your takeaway when he was addressing the new insurgents and the new groups, emerging groups like threats like Bukarawa? And also, whilst you're at it, let's also talk about inflation, and how he addressed the economic issues regarding inflation. Critics said he lacked depth when talking about the inflation numbers and even the stock market.
Okay, speaking to security, I just want to lend to what I've been saying before. That interview also gave me more impetus to pushing our National Assembly to call for constitutional reform in terms of maybe we need to switch from the presidential to the parliamentary system that we had in the First Republic. Because what is happening now is that not just the media, even the National Assembly can't speak to the president in direct terms. All the checks and balances that the presidential system comes with the judiciary, with the legislature, they're not working. Basically, you have people who kowtow to the executive, and this is not just at the federal level, it's also at the state level. People are not able to speak truth to power. So maybe we should be pushing for a parliamentary system that has the advantage of an opposition. So you have the ruling party, and then you have the opposition right there in parliament to be able to check the government, to be able to put forward the issues so that we can have some kind of, because what we have is some kind of false gagging whereby people can't actually say it as it is. Now, that now affects our security, because at the end of the day, you remember in the last administration, at some points, the presidency did tell the media that they should be taking permission or getting approvals from the presidency before they put out the information. We agree. Insecurity is not as bad as it was in the last administration. However, it's not just about saying the optics. What is the structure of our security architecture? What is on ground that will ensure that we improve? Because even though it's not as bad, it's not even good. I traveled from, I've been traveling around the nation by road between Lagos, Abuja, Kaduna, Uyo, Calabar, Enugu. Especially in the south, you have checkpoints at every 5 minutes. What is going on? You still have the sit-at-home Mondays that has been traumatizing and terrorizing Southeasterners. Now you're hearing of Lakurawa coming up in the northeast, whereas the insurgency there are still some ungoverned spaces. What do they call ungoverned spaces? Ungoverned spaces, if you travel by road into the north, you will see that, let's say you're leaving Maraba from Abuja and you're going to Nasarawa, you will see that the location of one police station to the next is about 1 hour, in some cases 2 to 3. Now, coming into the budget gives you an indicator of what the presidency wants to do. Now, the budget is usually a template, and what I say a template, they haven't really changed much of the budget. Even though it increased from about 31 to 49, it's just because of devaluation. What we have is literally the same that we've always had. And one of my major issues, the budget will tell you, which is the fiscal plan, it will tell you what they intend to do. Now, if you're still giving the military 500 billion, which is like the bulk compared to other ministries, I did not see at least half of that should have been earmarked to the police, because you can't continue funding the military in the period of scarcity, whereas it's not the military that will stay in those areas where the insecurity has been dealt with. You need a functional police. So for the fact that I did not see a huge allocation to the police, that tells me that I'm not going to see an improvement in the internal security of this country. We're at 250 to 350 policemen policing 2 million people. In the president's campaign, remember how he said, give them beans, give them gari, give them agbado? He was referring to recruitment of 1 million people in the internal security, which was a good campaign point. But you can see 2 years into his administration, the police have not been upgraded.
Right.
So it's an indicator for Nigerians that we're still going to be facing largely the insecurity issues into the new year.
And very lastly,
can I go to inflation?
Yeah, inflation. That's the last one. There was a criticism argued that he lacked depth when addressing inflation and even the stock market. Your thoughts, very quickly, because we're pressed for time.
Remember, the president is a former accountant. He does not lack any depth. Like I've told you, if you don't put it to him, you're not going to get the answers. Like I said, this budget, right? How do we tackle inflation? Thankfully, the CBN, we have to give him credit there. The CBN has been able to restore some level of sanity to what was going on before, because normally in the last administration, it was more the CBN we were hearing. It was more the CBN that was driving the fiscal policy. Now, the Ministry of Finance and Coordinating Ministry of the Economy hasn't really done a good job, because as you can see, Nigeria does not have much money because of the debt situation, over $100 billion, okay? Which is taking out 1/3 of our budget this time. So we've moved from dealing with subsidy, fuel subsidy. We're now trying to deal with the inflation and the debt situation. Largely, it's because our currency issue is largely because we're not productive. In terms of earnings, we have come down. Therefore, what I expected was, like I said, not only a large allocation to the police to be able to deliver some level of security internally, because it's when you have internal security that development takes place. Secondly, in terms of fiscal plan, I thought I would see, if you don't have the money to pay for power, to pay for the improvement in power infrastructure. Right now, I want the president with his Chinese and French visits, I want to see PPPs, public-private partnerships, equities. What assets are we selling down? Are we selling 50% of NMPC to raise about $50 billion, which would ramp up government revenue to be able to address some factors? And if we're not selling down, if we're going to get the Chinese to come in with $10 billion, what are we going to give them? Is it a 30-year moratorium to be able to ramp up our power infrastructure? This is where productivity comes, because once you have the productivity, your nation begins to produce in other areas to be able to deal with the inflation. So in that area, I want him to do more. I want him to, at least by now, I would expect a state of emergency in power and a state of emergency in agriculture. He mentioned food inflation is the highest inflation headline. And the 2,000 tractors he spoke of, as you can see, he said that at the entry of his presidency. 2 years in, we've not seen them. The long duty items, husk brown rice, maize, sorghum, they still haven't come in. That's where I expect them to mount pressure on him. And by the way, it's Christmas. If the president can talk this well, I think they should be doing media parleys at least once every 6 months. The president does not run away from chit-chats.
Every quarter, how about that? Let's start with once every quarter, just a touch base.
Well, you have to remember he's not as young as before. So at least the Ministry of Information and all the ministers can be doing every quarter, while the president does every 6 months.
Well, you got a point there, but we're in perilous times, my friend, and we need to hear the president speak as much as he did the last time. And also, he has a lot of
that's why I asked for a state of emergency in power and in agriculture. If you can deal with those two sectors, but might I add, the same attention that is being given to the tax reform, okay? You can see all the governors are all locked in. All the state assemblies are locked in.
Right.
That's the same attention that should be given to power and to agriculture. If we do that, it's not rocket science. You will get the results. Nigeria will become a place like before that we were proud of. And this Japa syndrome would be reversed, and you would see many investors coming into the country, not out of speculation, but simply because Nigeria is a beautiful market of 200 million people. Nobody matches us because we have the number. It's how we optimize the numbers that makes the difference.
I wanted to add two more to that list, security and education, but that's a conversation for another day. Devo, you've been sublime. I want to say thank you so much for taking out the time this morning on very short notice to save the day, Superman. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're going to a short break. When we come back, I'm going to pass the baton on to Mazzino to bring you the strips. Wait, stay there. We'll be back.
And you're welcome. It's time for the strips, where art imitates life, or is it life imitates art? So life is actually depicted in art, the bitter truths most times, but hey. Now, let's take a look at some of the strips that we had from over the weekend. I think there's one from a week before that we had to touch on because it was so interesting. Let's find out what we're starting with for today. Now, Judith, I'm going to be needing you on this one as well because we have to do this back and forth thing where we try and explain.
Food is not expensive, bro. You have to pay me.
I'll buy you a taco fuel. Don't worry, it's Christmas, I guess. Now, let's start with this one. So, over the week, the president presented to the 11th Assembly, and then he said, no, 10th. So you're all elected. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, I do, of course. Yeah, that's about a week ago, thereabout.
I wanted to say something about the media chart. We have a very eloquent president, whether you like it or not. And what Devo said about his health, his health implicating the frequency of which we should see him, I beg to differ. I think we need to see him as much as possible.
He said age.
Age, health, all of them join. But
I thought of it as he's an elderly man. We should be respecting his time.
I respect
what I mean? Like, that's what I thought it was.
And he's got so much to do, but we still need to be able to parlay with him as much as possible. Yeah. Right. For instance, this now, let's take a look at the 47.9 trillion budgets. Now, it's a very interesting depiction here, and this is from, I think, Business Day, if I'm not mistaken, how they actually depicted this. You know that person there, Fabio?
Yeah, that's my uncle.
Your uncle?
Yeah.
And then this is kind of like put in a shrine setting type of way where you bring a sacrifice. This is the sacrifice. And they're like, no, this is not, it's not enough. We need it fatter. But look at the inscriptions on the wall here. National Fattening Assembly, nothing slims what we pad. That's the budget there depicted in this lady.
No wonder it looks so familiar, because I was about to say that this looks like a fattening room.
Yeah, that's what it is.
In the South.
The Igbo tradition of fattening your women before sending them out to the husband's house.
Yeah,
It's very interesting how this was depicted. I like it. And there, of course, you know who it is with the hat and the glasses. This is what I present to you.
Wait, what? Who's that? Wait.
Look at it. No.
Who's the person sitting down on the budget, though?
I don't know if that is a depiction of any true-to-life person.
Ah, gotcha.
Unless I'm mistaken here, unless I haven't deciphered that one. But it just seems to me like a presentation of the budgets to the National Assembly. Look at that one there.
Bears a very canny resemblance to the person with the blue hat on.
But of course, we all know who that might be.
Yeah.
Might be.
But only they gave that person, they gave the feminine features.
Ah, well.
And they also painted it blue, sort of.
You're going in too deep on this one. I'm not
I
with you.
know, it looks, they look so alike. Anyway,
But tell you what,
they're going to put us into trouble one day.
focus on the inscriptions, and this is not us. This is what the paper actually told. Look at the other end there. Nothing is too big for padding. It gives you that understanding that Nigerians don't take anything they hear from the presidency at face value. They always believe that something is going on at the back, and expecting that this budget is going to be padded at the end of the day, or at least some form of racketeering or something would happen to it. This is how we see our government. And it's,
is that the mace he's holding?
Yes, it is, of course. Yeah, of course.
Wow.
It's his place to actually have it with him, the Senate presidents. You see what I'm saying there about?
Whoa,
but tell you
goodness me.
Let's move to another one, because if you found this one interesting, this one should actually be interesting to you. It's Christmas, of course, but at what expense are people celebrating this year? I will tell you that it has been difficult for most people, but still Nigerians always find a way. This year, taking a look, August Santa, but I paid you to gift my boy some toys, not to serve him beans and Gary. There was a social media post that went viral of a lady who pulled out this little plate from her nephew's bag and showed what he was giving after she had paid 15,000 naira for end-of-year party. Inside of this little snack pack was a loaf of bread, quarter of a loaf of bread, I think, and then akara was also 2 pieces of akara. She paid 15,000 naira for end-of-year party, and that was what the boy was giving back home. This is what's happening to Nigeria. First off, there's no money to even throw a party. Secondly, you do, then somebody's actually on the side taking out of it. The situation is very, very, very bad now. Christmas is not what it used to be. And DeVoe said something when you were speaking with him about the IJGBs giving a wrong interpretation of what is exactly happening in Nigeria. This is what is happening in Nigeria, not what you see in VI or Lekki. This is it.
As you know, same thing with Bali in Indonesia. When you go to Bali and you go to all those resorts, it's very, very interesting when you look at, Thailand, Thailand.
Thailand, okay.
When you go there to Bali, you can see all the resorts and everything, but when you go to the capital and those other places, there's also, the disparity is very stark and glaring, So the IKGPs are just here to have a good time, and all the business owners who are there enjoying themselves, let them make the money that they want to make. You know what I mean? Like,
I know what you mean. Yeah. I'm gonna create a contrast for you. Bali, as against is it Thailand now?
Yeah.
Thailand, as against Nigeria, have apparatus put in for tourism, so they're actually still making money. In Nigeria, these guys come back. We don't have such an apparatus. So whether you like it or not, we're still losing out, and they're still painting the wrong picture for Nigeria. If we had a tourism infrastructure or apparatus in place, then we can say, fine, this is what we're doing. We're actually collating an experience, much like what they're doing. They're not trying to deceive you into thinking this is Thailand. In Nigeria, the case is such. It's deception. It's not really what it is. We're not happy. We're suffering.
Is it tourism deception?
No, it's not deception. It's packaged. It's supposed to be so. It's not deception. It's a package. We want you to have fun, but this is not the reality of things. We just want you to come and take advantage of the environment, the people, the terrain, the scenes, and all of that.
Yeah, I think the IJGBs know what the reality is, because they're stuck in one spot. They can't go to Egbeda. They can't even try it.
Yeah.
They don't even know where that is. I think they know. I think they're around those circles and they know where they're having fun. They cannot decide to take a bus and go to Ibadan.
No,
they can't do it, except those who are indigenous of Ibadan. Anyway, away from that, looking at that photograph, or rather to the story that you were sharing, it just reminded me way back when I was younger in our primary school, and they would give money for end-of-year party, and somehow I never got rice.
You want rice? You want rice? Let me show you. I hope this is the next one. Can we go with the one with the cost? Yes, thank you very much.
Feel my inner child.
Thank you very much for mentioning rice. This is a very simple picture. However, Business Day captured exactly what's happened across the week in one simple picture. A cup, a wad of cash on a table with the flag. Now, over the week, we had the situation in Sokoto of 10 civilians losing their lives. The governor, however, swung into action, compensated the families of those who had lost family members. He gave 20 million naira and 100 bags of rice. And that's what this is. The cost of Nigerian lives. It's a sad reminder where we find ourselves with everything we're struggling with. The army trying to do its own work and people getting caught in the crossfire. It is sad, but it's just so bad the question you should be asking is how we got here. How did our insecurity get so bad that we have the Karawas infiltrating communities and we are unable to tell the difference? Let's just blitzkrieg everybody then. Sad. I don't know if you have anything to tell
nothing
about
except the lettering on that picture. It said the worth of life and renewed hope. That's all that it is. I remember earlier this week when I was this whole stampede issue that happened again met the souls of those who lost their lives during the charity events, and may they also rest in peace. And I remember somebody saying that that even if you are poor, there should be dignity in your poverty. And I just, in my mind, there wasn't any time. You know how it is, Miss, it's never any time, and just looking at this person, I was like, where is there dignity in being poor? Where is there dignity in poverty? Like,
Judith, we can have this argument. Yeah, I like a good argument. But I understand what your friend was trying to say. I understand what your friend was trying to say. I'll explain it to you if we have any space of time we can have this discussion. Right. But this is as much as we can bring to you for this week. But tomorrow on Breakfast Extra, we're going to be taking a review of some of the best strips that we've had on the show here this year, 2024. So join us then. And if you have any suggestions, maybe you could get it across to us using our social media platforms to suggest what you think we should be showing for the strips come tomorrow on our final edition for Breakfast Extra. And yeah, Judith will be doing the prologue on that one.
You don't do.
We can't wait. I'm putting you on the spot. Much pressure. Let's move on now to our next segment. Do stay tuned. We've got more. It's only midway through Breakfast Extra. Morning and welcome. Focus Africa now on Breakfast Extra. Today, we turn our attention to Mozambique, where the recent general elections has ignited widespread controversy. Allegations of election fraud and irregularities have been raised by opposition parties, casting a shadow over the legitimacy of the results. These concerns highlight ongoing challenges in the country's democratic process and have sparked significant debates with Mozambique and beyond. The ruling Frelimo party has been declared the winner, but opposition groups including Renamo and MDM have rejected the results, citing discrepancies in vote counts and reports of voter intimidation. Election observers have also reported serious concerns about transparency and fairness. This situation has raised critical questions about the future of Mozambique's democracy and its implications for governance and stability in the region.
And so to help us understand the current state of affairs, we're joined by Adriano Novanga. He is the director of the Center for Democracy and Human Rights. Adriano, thank you again for joining us. We appreciate you for doing this with us this morning. I mean, let's start with just the latest that's going on in Mozambique. Protests have now broke out again, just following the concluded, the new results have now been put out by the commission, still affirming the ruling party as the winner. That's David Chapo, I beg your pardon. Let us know, what's the latest in Mozambique at this point?
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me. This morning in Maputo, it's a calm morning, but people, they are worried. They are moving up and down. They have to buy supplies, which are in shortage, because there was looting, there was destruction of public and private properties. So there is shortage of everything. There is shortage of food, there is shortage of fuel. I mean, you have families that are moving up and down, trying to identify their loved ones that are missing. The mortuary is full of bodies. Some are not identified. And this is because today and tomorrow, they are the only days without protests. There is a break in the protests, as Venancio Mondlane has called yesterday. He said on Monday, again, it will resume in what he called spearhead phase of the protests. So it is a mix. It's a mix of a tense country, a mix of crying out with hundreds have lost their lives in what we are describing as a carnage. Carnage taking place not only in the central prison in Maputo, where more than 1,500 inmates have escaped, and police has recaptured some of the inmates in the run, and some of those, they have been executed in the prison cells, but throughout the country, in Nampula and Zambezia, and also Sofala, lives have been lost in, again, what we described as a carnage, starting soon after the announcement of the results by the Constitutional Council, which, as you have indicated, they still confirm Daniel Chapo as the winner.
Adriano, you paint a very grim picture with bodies and identification, and we saw pictures there of fires and people and police and dogs. But what's the body language of the ruling party, the Frelimo? Are they, does it seem like they're willing to dialogue with the other parties or even the public on this instance? Or does it seem like one of obstinance or perhaps maybe even, you know, hey, we don't care, this is our win, we're going to keep it? Yeah.
The mood that we see coming from Frelimo is the same since the beginning, of closing door for dialogue, of blaming Venancio Mondlane. They're blaming everybody. They are trying to get people to condemn the violence of the protesters, not addressing the root causes of the problem. Frelimo is focusing on the manifestations, but not in terms of offering solutions also. It is more in the blaming type of game. So you don't see a change towards an inclusive, transparent, and open dialogue for solution. That is not yet there. Frelimo is still in its plan A. The plan A is to muddle through whatever happens. They're muddling through. They were muddling through first for the pronouncement of the elections by the Constitutional Council. We have seen waves and waves of violence. They remained reluctant in moving 1 inch from that position. And now, with the Constitutional Council having proclaimed the results, now they're muddling through towards the 15th of January, where the inauguration takes place. No matter what happens, even if the country is burning, they are in that trajectory of inauguration. No dialogue, no attempts whatsoever to lead the country into a reconciliation mood. That is not that.
Adriano, and this now begs to ask the question about the SADC. You know, here in West Africa, we have ECOWAS, and we've seen Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea, and other states stay away from democracy and embrace military era, right? And this states, and people have always, critics have argued that ECOWAS stood aside and waited for this to melt down into what it is in these states. And we're now seeing this in Southern Africa as well. Is the SADC going to step in aiding with dialogue for Mozambique? Because this is the second announcement for the election results, still affirming Frelimo. And it doesn't look like Venancio is going to step down or go away in silence, and his supporters will still be on the streets. Is the SADC going to step in? Are you calling for the SADC to step in?
We have been calling. We talked in previous occasions where we came bold to say, this is no longer a domestic crisis. This is a regional crisis. It needs to be addressed from a regional perspective. It's affecting the free movement of people and goods. It is affecting the Mozambique playing its vital role of enabling regional trade, and South Africa and the remaining countries of the region, they are being affected. But there is very little to nothing what they're doing. Remember, last month, there was a summit in Harare, Zimbabwe. At that summit, we have done all advocacy to inform SADC, SADC, that at this summit, there has to be a proper and thorough discussion of what is happening in Mozambique and the risk of it spilling over to the region. But nothing. They allowed my president, the current president, Filipe Nyusi, to frame it as a domestic crisis, that it will be domestically addressed. And nothing happened. We called for the defense organ of SADC to come forth with an assessment mission, fact-finding mission, because what is happening? It's a slaughter. The defense forces in Mozambique, they are slaughtering people. They are killing people in numbers. This is brutality. This level of brutality it cannot be ignored by the world. It cannot be ignored by SADC, but it is being ignored. And it is risking destabilizing the entire region. So my straightforward answer to you is we don't expect much from SADC. You know why? Because these SADC member states, they are all comrades. They all come from the same school of the liberation movements. They look at themselves not as a regional body that is to hold accountable member states that are not adhering to the principles of democracy and good governance, but rather to stand to each other, to support each other as comrades. So they look at each other as comrades. They don't care about the suffering, the killing, the brutalities, and the crimes being committed against the people of Mozambique by those who are tasked to protect them. They don't care.
Adriano, as the director for the Center for Democracy, when you take a look at Africa for 2024 and all that has happened when it comes to dissent or protests, there might seem to be a thread there where we have youth championing these causes, whether in Kenya, Nigeria, a little bit of Ghana, and I think other East African countries as well, through the year 2024. Now, in the case of Mozambique, and from the pictures that we are seeing, who would you say is championing these dissents or these protests that we are seeing? Are these the youths, and on what platform is it strongest on? I'm very curious regarding the platform that they are using as a means to assemble.
That is a great question that you're asking. Let me unpack it a little bit further. Now, what we are seeing in Mozambique today, it is not novel, it is not new. In 1999, there was a similar electoral fraud. But the reason why then it did not gain that momentum is two to threefold. One, it was not youth-based. It was not being led by the young people. It was being led by a former rebel movement that carried weapons. This is number one. Number two, that time, there was no social media. People depended on what the print media was saying, and the print media was state-controlled. Number three, there was no generational change in Mozambique society. It was still the very old generation that was coming from the memories and narratives of the liberation movement and then of the civil war. Now, that is changed. We are in 2024. There has been a generational change in Mozambique society. When we ended the civil war in 3 decades ago, Mozambique was 19 million people. Today we are 33 million people, of which the young people is the bulk, is the biggest, and they have access to education. Not only that, they have access to social media platforms. The Facebook, look at the role the Facebook is playing. Venancio Mondlane himself, he is mobilizing, he is organizing through Facebook. through social media. So it is the young people, to answer straightforward to your question, it is the young people that is being energized, organized, informed through social media, through Facebook in particular, and WhatsApp. These are the young people. The difference that you have in those camps that you have mentioned is that here in Mozambique, we are not in a democratic space. Here, Frelimo and the state are the same thing. Kenya, look at Kenya. President Ruto wanted to move one direction. The young people said, no, this is our country. We want you to move this direction. And that is the trend. Look at Ghana. That is the trend in the free Africa. But this part of Africa, the SADC region, and Mozambique in particular, Zimbabwe and Tanzania, we're not yet free.
Now, Adriano, I know a country where, as is calling all these other countries of the young people, I know a country where the young people also came out to protest, but they were tried for treason.
Well, that's a very familiar story about to tell.
Children, by the
well,
way.
let's keep it on Mozambique. Now, Adriano, I asked that previous question to get here. Now, whether the MDM or Renamo or even Frelimo, do they note or do they have a system where the youth, these people who are agitating for proper democracy, do they have access to governance? Are the youth involved in these elections as party members, as candidates? Or is it still the case we saw in Zimbabwe or whether it was Burundi? Are the youths involved?
Yes and no. The young people within Frelimo, they aspire to be entrepreneurs. They aspire to be part of the table. They are struggling to have a seat in the eating table. You know what I'm saying? So it is still a patronage politics. The young people there, that in the past, those within Frelimo, they used to be a vibrant youth movement. But today, that infrastructure, it is dormant. It's about having a place or a plate in the table. So the bulk, the overwhelming majority of the young people, they feel disenfranchised. They don't feel represented. They feel excluded. They are not part of the entrepreneurs. So they want change. They want a new way of doing politics.
So which party represents the youth at this point? Which party are the youths rallying behind?
The youth that you see out there, they are behind Venancio Mondlane. They are not represented by Frelimo.
Yeah, and Adriana, I'm glad we got to this juncture about Venancio Mondlane, because then what about, I understand his grievances as well. He said that, the commission announcing that result has affirmed fraud and irregularities and illegalities with the system. Are there no channels to address his concerns? In Nigeria, there's the election tribunal, where they take it to the tribunal, they pick a case, and they touch it out in court. These youths are supporting Venancio, they're supporting his party, and they are coming out because of the dissatisfaction with the elections. It has resulted to death, it has resulted to chaos, it has resulted to imprisonment, extrajudicial killings, you name it. How best can this be resolved for Venancio, where it goes to the election tribunal and we don't see more lives being lost in the process of finding victory or solutions?
What is that tribunal? What is that tribunal? There is no credible tribunal there. This is what I'm saying. Frelimo and the state in Mozambique, they are the same thing. This is a controlled democracy. That's why I was saying, you go to Kenya, you go to South Africa, you go to Ghana, those are some of the, you go to Botswana, those are democratic examples in our continent. When you come to Mozambique, even Zimbabwe and other parts in this region, We are not yet there. We are at the level where the formal liberation movement has not yet emancipated the state institutions. Let me give you a small example. We are at this point today because in June this year, as part of the current elections, the Constitutional Council that last week has come out to proclaim the result. It is the same entity that it has excluded the party coalition that was standing for Venancio Mondlane. So Venancio Mondlane is not a candidate for Member of Parliament because the coalition supporting him, it was excluded by the Constitutional Council.
Right.
And by excluding a coalition standing for parliament election, you are not excluding only this group, you are denying millions of people from having the choice from where to vote, to choose. Vote is about choosing. When you exclude a group like that to participate in an election, you are denying people the right to choose in a free and fair elections. So it started there. Now we are here also because there is an alternative for Venancio. The presidency is the only avenue that he has because he was denied the opportunity to go to parliament and lead his parliamentary group because they were excluded. So it is not a credible electoral process. It is a politically controlled process by Frelimo and Renamo that they work together today. Hence, the young people, they don't feel represented neither by Frelimo nor by Renamo, and they are rallying behind Venancio. The problem is that massive movement, it has no institutional infrastructure for justice. There is no possibility of doing justice. When the Constitutional Council, it makes its proclamation, there is no other place where you can go. It is final, it is finito. But it is finito in a context where the Constitutional Council has committed a number of illegalities, including denying the people the access to participate.
Adriana
Yes.
Nvunga, we can't thank you enough for actually being with us on this segment, but we have come to the last bit of it. But thank you very much for giving us a bird's eye view.
You said it was an hour.
Oh, no. It's a 3-hour show.
It's a 3-hour show, but this is a segment from the 3-hour show. But you've done really good justice to this conversation.
But tell you what we're going to do, Adriana. We would like to invite you on our tomorrow edition for Breakfast Extra, where we can continue this conversation because it seems a very, very big one, and we need plenty of time to be able to finish it. So right here on TV, I'm giving you the opportunity to accept or refuse our invitation.
Adriana has to go to church.
Anytime.
Thank you very much. There we go. Thank you very much, Adriana. Now do stay tuned because coming up now is going to be the news, and Judith will be bringing us that one.
Hello and welcome. You're watching News Central Television. It's time for the breakfast headlines here on Breakfast Extra. I am Judith TV. Start as the residents of the Agarian community in Sokoto State have rejected claims by the military that those affected were terrorists following airstrikes on Christmas Day that killed at least 10 people in the Gidan, Sama, and Rutuwa communities of Silame local government area. Reports suggest the fighter jet was targeting Lukarawa terrorists, but inevitably struck civilians, livestock, food silos, and homes. The Nigerian Air Force has pledged a thorough investigation into the incident. The NAF spokesperson, Air Vice Marshal Olushola Akimboyewa, has defended the strike, citing credible intelligence and confirmatory aerial surveillance. His remarks were echoed by Lieutenant Colonel Abubakar Abdullahi, coordinator of the Joint Media Coordination Center, who emphasized that the operation was based on extensive reconnaissance. The airstrikes have sparked criticism, with residents rejecting the military's justification for the attack. Meanwhile, a statement attributed to the Minister of State Defense, Bello Matawalle, the federal government says it will run an independent investigation on the incident. Governor Caleb Mutfwang of Plateau State has revealed that the security situation on the Plateau has improved in recent months. Governor Mutfwang, after a visit to President Bola Tinubu in Lagos State, commended the efforts of federal government in trying to restore peace, saying that the recent Christmas holidays has not witnessed any attacks on communities, especially when compared to the same period in 2023.
Things are getting better. Security-wise, certainly we are better off this year than we were last year. Apart from the fact that the security forces on ground are doing their best, we have also invested a lot in technology. We have been able to do a lot of mobilization of communities. And so there is a lot of consciousness, that has kept people aware. And it hasn't been 100%. There have been a few incidences here and there. But on the whole, I can tell you that things are getting better. Well, with the support of Mr. President, I can assure you that we're not going to take our foot off the pedal. We're going to make sure that we cross the T's, dot the I's as far as security is concerned, and make sure that we make it more difficult for criminality to take place.
Food shortages and long queues have emerged in Maputo as Mozambique's capital grapples with the aftermath of post-election violence. Looting and vandalism erupted after the ruling party was declared victorious in contested elections, leaving food, fuel and medicine in critically short supply. Tensions have been further heightened by the daring escape of over 1,000 inmates from a maximum security prison, sparking unverified rumors of armed men roaming residential neighborhoods. Some residents have reported patrolling their streets out of fear, although no attacks have been confirmed. Meanwhile, Mozambique researcher Burj Nimire has said that while no verified reports of violence have emerged, comments by the police chief about detainees visiting houses have deepened public anxiety, fueling speculation over the government's handling of the crisis. And on to Senegal, as Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko announced that his government would introduce legislation to revoke the amnesty law granted to former President Macky Sall, which covered 3 years of political violence that resulted in numerous deaths. The controversial amnesty, granted just before the March 2024 elections, sparked significant debate as Sall sought to ease tensions after delaying the presidential race. Critics argue the move was aimed Apologies for that. Critics argue that the move was aimed to shield those responsible for serious crimes, including homicide committed during political unrest from February 2021 to February of 2024. The law also allowed Sonko, despite his court convictions, to run for president alongside Bassirou Diomaye Faye, who ultimately won. And that's all we can take at this time. Many thanks for joining us for Breakfast Extra. Is back to breakfast, or rather, joining us for Breakfast Headlines. Is back to Breakfast Extra here on News Central Television. I am Judith at TV.
Hi, you're welcome. A very interesting story we're about to tell. The Pfizer scandal of 1996. Now, that remains one of the most harrowing examples of corporate malpractice on African soil. During a devastating meningitis outbreak in Kano, Nigeria, the pharmaceutical giant Pfizer conducted an experimental drug trial on vulnerable children without adequate information consent. 11 children reportedly died, and dozens more suffered severe side effects ranging from paralysis to brain damage. Though Pfizer eventually paid millions in settlements, The case has left an indelible scar on public health trust in Nigeria and continues to influence vaccine hesitancy today. The scandal exposed not only the ethical lapses in clinical trials, but also the systemic failures of oversight and accountability. The leaked cables from WikiLeaks and investigative reports have revealed allegations of blackmail and cover-ups involving high-ranking officials. The controversy has since become a cautionary tale for global health initiatives, highlighting the dangers of exploiting under-resourced regions for experimental purposes and the long-term damage it can cause to communities, people, and families. And only just recently, our News Central investigative journalist, Marshall Anionwe, my apologies, Marshall, no hard feelings, brought us a very interesting expose as to what's happening with the victims and their families for 28 years after. Now, joining us today to unpack the many layers of this scandal and its lingering effects are three distinguished, well, we were to have three guests. However, one of them, I'll tell why, had to pull out. But still, we have with us Dr. Philip Njamanze, chairman of the International Institute of Advanced Research and Training at Chizoba Medical Center. And also we have Dr. Alera Roberts, associate professor at the College of Medicine, University of Lagos. Thank you very much for joining us. We were to have David Hundeyi join us, but unfortunately he has a family emergency and so cannot be here with us today. But we wish him well and hopefully that we can have him on board next time.
Doctors, many thanks for joining us. And let me just start by just talking about this unethical medical trials that has happened in 1996 and the lasting effect that it's had on the communities and the lives of the people after. And I have to ask you about what could have possibly slipped through the cracks that Pfizer could have gone to Kano to do such an unethical medical trial such as this. I'll start with you, Dr. Alera.
Thank you very much for having me. I have to throw some controversy down on the table, number one. I won't say anything slipped through the cracks. This is a subject I teach, funnily enough, in the medical school at undergraduate and postgraduate levels. So it's something that we have packed and unpacked and repacked and taken apart, and we have to change our thinking. Nothing slipped through the cracks. Pfizer cannot find their way to Kano unaccompanied, unguided, and undirected. They got there because there was an emergency going on. There was a situation. It has been an ongoing situation. Let us not forget, we have annual outbreaks of meningitis in that part of the country. It is what we call the CSM belt, that meningitis belt that stretches all the way from the westmost point of the west coast of Africa all the way across the Sahel region into the Somalia region. So it's an ongoing thing. And a drug was being trialed to see whether it can help and change the clinical outcome. The place to trial that drug, to have that drug trial, is a place where the disease is happening. They've done the phase 1, the phase 2, they're now moving into the phase 3. So I'd like to change that narrative, first of all, that Pfizer didn't just happen on Kano, nothing slipped through the cracks. Things were put in place, their protocols, their processes. Were they strong enough? Were there gaps and lapses? Was there human error? Those are the questions that we need to be asking and answering.
Right. Doctor, do you agree as well that nothing slipped through the cracks? Is just, they were prepared to be there and they were welcomed with open arms?
Well, as you rightly pointed out, there was an emergency, health emergency. And of course, as is usual, the government and all the authorities are looking for...
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Oh, we seem to be having an issue with Dr. Njamanze's connection. We hope to get him back. But, Dr. Alera, if you would give us a moment, we are going to play a bit of the package which we put together here at News Central. And then when we get back, perhaps maybe we would have established or re-established connection with Dr. Njamanze and he can continue with his answer there. So let's see this package.
At the wake of a meningitis outbreak in 1996 in Kano State, Pfizer, a pharmaceutical giant offering to help, reportedly treated 200 children, administering Trovan to them, a drug which at the time was yet to get approval from the US FDA. This led to the death of some of the children and deformities in others. 28 years later, I head to Kano State to find out the current condition of the victims of Pfizer's experimental drug. The victims were a bit difficult to locate, but after 2 days of interacting with the locals and asking the right questions, I finally arrived at the residence of late Malam and Malama Salisu, parents to Rukaya.
When I was like 15 years old, I asked my mom what happened to me. That all my brothers and sisters look very normal, but me, I'm looking like that. I am normal before the vaccination. When she take me to the hospital, they say it's damaged my organs, my hormones. They kill my hormones that will help me to grow, that will help my teeth to be strong, that help my body to be normal like other people. They damage that organs. I will not grow again. My bone will be not strong again as normal people. Every year I will break. My leg will be break. That's why I'm not growing. Even my teeth are not strong. Even school, my parents do not put me because if I am playing with my mates, anything mistake, if I fall, I will get injury.
Rukaya is just one of several others still reeling from the effects of Pfizer's experimental drug, Trovan.
My name is Saadatu Tijani. I was born in Bakinrua. I was administered with a medication for meningitis at the time. I have a hospital card and a little toy that was given to me at the time at the hospital. My parents told me that before the Pfizer medication at the hospital, my legs were all right and I could move around without any problem. I could get on top of the bed and come down all by myself. I could hold things firmly while standing and move around with my legs. But since after the Pfizer medications, my legs started getting bad, and I could no longer hold on to things firmly, nor do things that require energy. It was as if my legs were cut off.
A lokacin ba da lafiya aka kai ni asibiti, ina cutar ƙyanda, aka kai ni asibiti.
My parents told me that when I was a little girl, at about 3 years of age, a drug known as Pfizer was administered on me, and then afterward, I couldn't move my legs. It started by shrinking one of my legs, completely drying it up, and then 2 days after being taken to the hospital, the other one also shrunk and dried up.
After a lengthy legal battle that ensued following the Kano meningitis outbreak in 1996, which had the state government, federal government, and parents of victims of the faulty Trovan medical experiment quoted as parties to the sue against Pfizer. In August of 2011, Pfizer had claimed that it had paid the sum of $175,000 each to 4 of the parents who lost their children to the medical experiment, and added that in the days that were to follow, more parents were to get compensation. It further added that the Kano state government was paid. Now, the big question for me was, did these parents actually get the sum of $175,000 each, which at the time Pfizer made the announcement amounted to 64 million naira each? And Kano State, why did it have to get an equivalent of 27 billion naira? These questions seem to be seeking answers, which of course I hope to find.
I'm the father of Hadiza Dambuzu, who is a victim of Pfizer trial carried out in 1996 by the Pfizer pharmaceutical company. So she died. After that, Pfizer promised to give us compensation. Each victim will be given $175 US. Very unfortunate, we were not given $175 US. We were given only $7,000 US, which is equivalent to 2.4 naira Nigerian currency. So we need help. We need assistance from all angles to collect the remaining balance.
I was paid 2 million naira and a few fractions, not up to 40,000 naira after changing it. I think it was around 2,020,000. They even called other victims and myself in to conduct DNA tests on us. I was part of it and my saliva was taken.
These victims have continued to cry foul at the injustice meted out on them. Though Pfizer maintains the children died from meningitis, not the trial drug, and describes its trial largely as a humanitarian effort aimed at saving lives during a 1996 epidemic, investigations have revealed that Pfizer was indeed responsible for the deaths and guilty of conducting human trials without informed consent. While those who lost their children to the experimental drug will continue to mourn their losses, knowing that no form of compensation can bring their children back, others may have to live the rest of their lives tending to their children with permanent deformities. In the coming days, I hope to dig deeper in the issues around the Trovan disaster in Kano State, the lives of the victims, and allegations of improprieties surrounding the compensation. Marshal Anthony Onoye for News Central.
It's a very interesting expose there, and I do hope that our viewers would actually find it in our YouTube page where you can watch this at your leisure. But it's a very sad one, I must say, and you would agree with me that those lives that were touched by this mishap, well, they suffered a lot. Now, to come back to our guests, and I'm hoping that we have Dr. Njamanze back with us here, because I'm about to ask about compensation. Dr. Njamanze, welcome back, and Dr. Alero as well. Now, regarding the compensation that these individuals and their families actually received, to the tune of 175 million, was it $1,000 million US, which is a very big sum. But, however, only to have been given the paltry sum of 2 million naira. In the first place, was the original sum enough for the victims? Do you think that it was compensation enough for the victims? We'll talk about the racketeering that happened for after, but the original sum of $175 million, was it enough for each victim? Dr. Njamanze, please.
Yes. I don't think that amount will be enough because compensations are styled according to it will take for the person to survive a lifetime with the deformity. What that means is that you will look at somebody with a deformity and say, okay, over these years, what will be the need the person have to deal with in terms of having assistance to move from one place to the other, earning a decent living, and making sure that they can take care of medical emergencies that will come up. When you do that, no matter that it looks as if that this is a substantial amount, but it's not really enough to do that over a lifetime. So I think the compensation that was given originally is too little. In the U.S., this amounts to something like $10–20 million for such an error. So I think in Nigeria it should be a lot more, because the challenges of special care, which might not be available locally, and the person has to travel outside the country to get this special care, will even be more involving for those who are victims. So I think the original amount was too small.
Dr. Alero, and hopefully Dr. Njamanze, you can also answer this question, but let me come to you, Dr. Alero. An outbreak like this happened in 1996. Meningitis also, we've seen more outbreaks. There's also the cholera outbreak from this year. There's also the AIDS and HIV epidemic of the 90s. I think 1996, 1995, 1994. We saw those situations happen. And it makes one wonder how organizations like this and pharmaceutical giants like this and corporations like this who step in to want to aid provide a drug that has not been certified by the FCDA, hopefully that's correct. So how then do you check it as a Ministry of Health who is welcoming this aid? How do you check the drugs or check the pharmaceutical aid that they are bringing to be used as such outbreak? Just make me understand how this happened.
Okay, so this is the conversation we have in the classroom very many times. When I ask my students, I say, set aside your emotions and your human empathy and sympathy and just put on your science hats, your hat of science that looks simply at facts. Number one, they were not coming to offer aid. This is a drug company. Their reason for being is research, development of new drugs, chemicals, medicaments for the purpose of making money. So obviously, for them to do that, those drugs have to do what they set out to do. If the drug isn't a success, they don't make any money. So they have an innate, built-in reason for that drug being good and making a success, and being successful at whatever it's set out to do. So that's number one. Number two, it can only be tested in a place where the disease is going on. Nigeria, part of the Sahel region, the CSM belt, this is an epidemic that happens year after year after year after year. And clearly, there's been a lot of research and development going on in that. Number three, drugs don't just come to the market. Like I said, there are processes, there are procedures. They start in the laboratory, in the petri dishes. There's the phase 1, there's the phase 2. Then they come into the phase 3, and then the phase 4. Even after the drug hits the market, it's still being monitored, evaluated, and investigated. So there's a process. This is a scientific process that goes on no matter what we're talking about, from vitamin C to any antiretroviral, antibacterial, anti-epileptic drug. All drugs go through these processes.
Right.
So that's there. The second thing we have to remember is that every single drug has side effects. So there's no emotion about that. Even the paracetamol and the aspirins that you're taking, they have side effects. These side effects may affect some people more than others, and that's why you get these percentages coming in there that some people are more affected than others by these side effects. So these are known risks that we take in taking any medication, okay? So the question then comes, how do we check it? This is, I suppose, one of the things we're still going to talk about, this issue of ethical research, which is actually the area that I teach. How do we conduct ethical research? We have to conduct this research. The world needs new drugs, new vaccines, new medicaments for the diseases that we're battling. And every day we're looking for how to improve on this. And, you know, the loss, I'm sorry, I'm going to throw a lot of controversy on the table. I think we've lost a very good chemical in Trovan because of the emotions that are being assigned to this. You know, the truth of the matter is children would have died of CSM, cerebrospinal meningitis, with or without this drug. And that's just the truth. Children have been dying of meningitis and are still dying of meningitis up till today. So the question is, we need to have this ethical research processes. Sorry.
So Dr. Lero, are you saying that perhaps maybe even Trovan was actually responsible for, well, making other children healthier while others might have suffered side effects? Is that the summary of what you're saying?
We've lost that data. I cannot answer that question.
Okay. Right. So now, based on that, and since this is your area of expertise, how do you reconcile the need for urgent medical intervention versus risk? Like in this case, there was a meningitis.
That is the right question to ask. Because we have since learned through all of this and, you know, strengthening of ethical principles and whatnot, you cannot really use an emergency situation to test the trial drug. This is the outcome, and this is a global outcome.
Right, Dr. Njobanze, let me also ask you as well. Right, you are in the laboratory, and you are always on the petri dish, and you've also talked about, you know, ethics and just doing things right. You've also been concerned about. I remember we had a conversation about vaccines as well when the vaccines were coming in. and this time it had, I think it was for cholera or the other one, Lassa fever. There we go. So the conversation then is, you know, with ethics, risks, the checks and the balances, where do we draw the line? Who is to blame in this situation? The Ministry of Health, the public health, the private sector, or who is to blame in this slaughter of 1996?
Yeah, the issue here is that there is standard care for meningitis. Now, if you are going to do a drug trial, that means there will be a control group. You have to deny that standard care. That's the problem. Because otherwise, you would have given it with the standard care, the ones we know that work. Once you don't know that whether it will work at all, you are going to deny it to a whole group. And should there be a major misfortune that then you have actually caused a drug-related injury. So that's where the fault is going. That the people were denied standard care, and then this resulted in the malformations and problems they have. So that's what the case is all about. It's not really that you should not try drug. It's just that you denied for what would have otherwise been the standard thing to do. And that's where the is here.
There was also the conversation of consent as well. The patients or the victims were not aware that what they were taking was a trial and it has not been approved by the body that is approving all the medicines in the US. And they were being tried. They didn't realize that that's what it was. So let's talk about that as well. Should the Ministry of Health take a closer look at things like this? When patients, I mean, in the north, there's also the issue of, education and this disparity of it when, they're not aware. Let's talk about that. Dr. Njolanze, please. Yeah.
Yes, the issue of consent has to be there. It's the foundation of medicine. We call it the health declaration. That means for every procedure, even when you have standard care, you must ask the person to consent. You see, when you reach the consent issue, you have actually nullified the good intention of the medicine. I want to give you a drug, whether it's a trial drug or it's a normal drug, you must have to make the person understand what you are going to accept that. That is standard. And there is no room for what all kind of scandalous things we hear. People must be vaccine mandate. What does that mean? You want to mandate something that I don't have to consent for me to receive. That's not medicine. That's some kind of extreme enforcement that has no place in medicine. Medicine, foundation of medicine is consent. So consent is the foundation. And in this case, there was a breach of consent. And it's not just consent, it's informed consent. Informed consent would mean that if you take this drug, these are the injuries you should expect. But we are going to take measures to mitigate those injuries. So that is what is called informed consent. That the person knows there is a likelihood of some bad outcome coming, but everything will be done in order to mitigate that. So if this was breached, and it's actually a very bad thing, and I think Nigeria should be very seriously, because just to put in the issues here, joining my colleague to put in some controversial, it is even more actual now, because you have people say that something that biolabs in Africa, and including some in Nigeria. If there is a leak now, you will see all the drug trials going on of how to combat that virus without even consent. So I think it's not just a matter of the ministry, but it's a matter of the parliamentary oversight, because this has to deal with fundamental human rights, the human rights of each individual of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So it belongs to parliament oversight. That means we should have National Assembly Committee looking into all these issues in terms of are we respecting fundamental human rights of Nigeria?
So,
in every
so Dr.
And so should it across ECOWAS and across state.
So Dr. Njamanze, real quickly, from what you're saying, you're stating that this situation could have been helped with simple basic care and there would have been no need for the vaccines. Am I correct?
Yes, in the sense that, yes, there is the basic care for meningitis before they knew. That standard care could have been given. So this one that is unknown is just off the table because we are trying something which we don't know the outcome and what to be.
Okay then. Dr. Olera, I don't think that you made a comment about that the data that they must have collated during the trial of this drug in 1996 must have been lost and that something valuable from Trovan must have come out of it. I don't think it was lost. And my theory is, remember one of the respondents in that interview, or rather in that investigative piece, was saying that her DNA was collected and there was a mouth swab that went with it. Do you think that that data is out there with Pfizer? Because Pfizer is huge.
What I'm saying is that the scientific community has lost access to that. The data is definitely there. Data, you are right, data doesn't get lost as such, but the data is there, but nobody's going to touch it with a 10-foot barge pole. Nobody will want their name associated with it in any way, shape, or form. So I think the DNA that was collected at that time was to make sure that the person who was getting the compensation was the person who was injured or daughter or parents to the person that, So I think that was a simple, let's identify who you are and if you are the one who's eligible for the compensation. So that would have been more of a legal issue.
Dr. Olera,
but you're right, the data is there somewhere, probably locked in a deep cyber vault somewhere, and nobody's going to put their hands to paper to say, right, I signed for the release.
I volunteer as tributes, just tributes to go get it.
No, sweetheart, trust me, you don't want to go there, you don't want to go there.
Yeah. We want to say thank you very much. And especially to you, Dr. Olera, would like to invite you over so we can actually have another discussion regarding human tests when it comes to your area of expertise, which is the ethics of trials. But thank you very much, doctors, for joining us and giving us your expert opinion on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you. Dr. Olera there, Dr. Olera Roberts, and also Dr. Philip Njamanze just talking to us about that piece that Marsha Onaya did. Now remember that coming up next year, it's going to be, you can catch the investigative journalism, the investigative piece by Marsha Onaya on our YouTube page. Just go on to www.youtube.com/News Central TV and can catch the full episode from that.
So we have standing by our News Central correspondent, Emmanuel Bagudu, in Sokoto, who will be joining us to tell us exactly what the situation is with the situation that we were faced from last week regarding the bombing and killing of 10 civilians in Sokoto. Bagudu, good morning. Nice of you to join us today.
Thank you so much. I'm calling you live from Silami local government here, very close to Kebbi State here in Sokoto North Federal District. Silami LGS, specifically very close to, I'm just close to Rumtua and General Samari, the scene of the Air Force mishap. So how is Abuja, how is Lagos?
Okay,
right. Emmanuel, the military has rejected the stance of the locals in that area, saying that the airstrikes was not targeted to terrorists or Lukarawa, that it was targeted, locals had died and that 10 of their community members had died. How true is this?
Yes. There's actually some kind of discordance, some kind of opposing views because we just came into the community and of course we're just trying to gain clearance to meet some appropriate authorities, community leaders to get their ultimate to, listen to their own side of the story. But of course, in the meantime, while they're trying to give us clearance, the general ambience is that the community have officially rejected the submission of the military. That of course, that they have some alliance with Lakurawa, that's why some of them were affected. If you remember very well that three excuses was given by the military. The first one was the fact that the community are hosting, allegedly hosting some members of Lakurawa The second one is the fact that the forest of which the Lakurawas are operating is actually close to the community. And the third claim by General Buba yesterday, he said that the attack was a minor explosion, not from the Air Force. Those are the three claims. That is just a minor explosion that led to the death of the 10 persons in Rutua and Ginasama, which the community members are actually, denying it, and they are going to give us details as soon as we gain clearance within the community. Those are the three issues. They said they are going to clear us on that, and the fact that the army claim that they are targeting Lakurawas actually affected their communities, and that they have no ties to Lakurawas at all, and they have not been hosting any Lakurawa person in their community at all. Yeah.
Maguru, when we spoke on Thursday, you and I, you drew up a case for the army, talking about the difficulties and perhaps maybe the collateral damage that they faced in this instance. Now you're there physically, what can you see? Was this a minor explosion? Are the stories from the army true? Or which one actually sounds more plausible, that from the villages or that from the army?
Yes, we are still yet to unravel that. That would be too early for me to give you a final judgment, a final verdict after my findings. But I hope that before noon I will get a final verdict. But the ambience is here. I don't see any traces of Lakura, even though they don't have any marks on their faces. But of course, the community remains calm, still counting their losses. And then, of course, there is no any reason. Of course, obviously, there's no any reason for an Air Force bomb to land in this community, because there's no any case where we have seen any meeting of any Lakura person within this community. Just that, of course, the forest, of course, the Ingila forest is very close to these communities. It's in between between the community and the neighboring Kempi state. So with time, we're going to unravel whether or not it was an error, or whether or not it was a collateral damage, or it was actually a target to finish Lakurawas who have been believed to be living in these communities. Yeah.
From what you know, do you think that there might be a gap in the military's intelligence gathering method?
Yes, there may be a gap, there may be not. There may be some kind of complexity, if you like, because some weeks ago, I was in Gongono, that's Masalanchi Gongono, just 20 kilometers to Niger Republic, in Tangaza local government area of the Central Sokoto North Senatorial District. I remember we mentioned how the community told us, and of course the commander for the operating base in Gongono, in person of Captain Martin Megamu, made it clear to us, together with the communities, that they are friends, they are more like relatives to the people of Niger. So the complexity of intelligence there is the fact that the Lakurawa has come in to, live with the people of Gongono, live with the people of Gudu local government, live with the people of Tangaza, and then they are just like family. They marry each other, they intermarry each other, and you can hardly say who is a terrorist and who is not. That's the complexity of the intelligence report. And they all speak, some of them speak Hausa, some of them speak French, and the Hausa language is actually more dominant in that area, way more than French. So Nigerians speaking Hausa, the same intonation with that of a Sokoto person, you hardly differentiate who is from Sokoto, who is from Niger. So that is the complexity of the intelligence, which I think should be amplified, and which I think the military have a lot of assignment to do in that. Yeah.
And so it now begs to ask the question about the identities of the 10 persons that they said they have killed in this airstrike or in this bombing or whatever it is we're going to describe this incident, right? Are they locals? Has there been anyone who's come to identify a body and say, this is my family member or friend or loved one who has been caught up in this case? What's the latest on that?
Yeah, their graveyard is just a stone throw from where I'm standing. We're going to get their names, we're going to get their profiles, we're going to get their details. We'll find out whether they're actually from Niger or they're actually from Silami. So those are the things that we're going to find out as time goes on. But for the general ambiance is that most of the community members here are claiming they are all their relatives. But we don't have a specific identity, but as time goes on, we're going to get those details. We're going to find out whether they're actually friends, what is their profile, what is their relationship. Because the statement from the army made it clear that the people that were killed have a clear alliance with the Lakurawa. So we're going to find out whether this 10 person were actually having any relationship with any person that is believed to be a Lakurawa person. So these are the things we're going to be finding out in the next few minutes. I'll get back to you, give you details of that. Thank you.
All right, Manu, I want to say thank you so much for just taking out the time to join us, and well done. We will patch on to you during our subsequent bulletin. 12 and also at 3 p.m. Emmanuel Bagudu there, our correspondent, live all the way from that bombing site there and in Sokoto. We'll switch gears to bring you perspectives, okay? We went out to the streets of Lagos, Nigeria, and we asked Nigerians about just basically life in general. Now we do know.
I'll tell you.
Let me do the honors, okay? Let's do the honors.
During the week, it was exciting news that the government had actually mandated that fuel prices be brought down. So we were wondering, has this had any positive effect on perhaps maybe prices of transportation or commodities, or are people much more inclined to travel now that the petrol prices have been reduced by a small sum? So we went out in the streets to find out what you thought, everyday Nigerians, and this was what they told.
Buy the same price, you will never see the price where I say. I buy for 1,025 naira for NNPC.
Some people are still selling 1,100 naira. Some still selling 1,015 naira. It's only NNPC are selling 915. You understand? Some NNPC is still selling 1,015 naira.
The fuel reduction has not caused any change in the market goods. So people want to sell what they have finished before they reduce the price. So, and that's the mentality we have until they sell the goods in stock finish and they get another one before that can be effective, or before this festive passes away. Probably by January it may take effect, but this December, I'm telling you, my brother, things has not changed.
The transport I will spend to Ikeja and go back will a little bit because of the reduction. There has not been. In fact, it has been a little bit. It has been a little bit like I got a little bit increase. So it has not. It doesn't have any effect on it at all. It doesn't.
There's nothing reduced. Things are even getting worse because now pure water say they are even selling it 150 naira. Why before it's 250 naira?
This morning when I was coming from Muwe, Ibafo to Secretariat, it was 700 naira, 800 naira, 500 naira from Magboro to Bega. So in which is supposed to have reduced to 300 naira.
Alausa is still, I mean, as of last week it was 400 naira. Today is still 400 naira. And if you check many of the filling stations, I still bought fuel yesterday at Mobi, it's still 1,015 naira. That until they are done with the old prices that they have. So it has not really had any effect on the prices of goods and services. So we hope that in the coming week, whether it's going to have an effect. For now, prices of goods and, of every household tools in the market are still the same.
There you have it. Nothing seems to be changing. I didn't want to be the first to tell.
I don't even know what they're... Is it 50 naira that you have deducted
about,
from this price?
Let's see, that would be about 75, 85 naira. That was...
50 naira, 35 naira. What's the difference?
Yeah, I know, yeah. But you would think that that was going to help, or it would help, but I don't think that it trickles.
Help what, Mazino?
I'm trying... Listen, see, listen. Judith, wait. We've been through so much this year.
Me have not.
So, no, we have, and you have too. Everybody's facing this.
I've not.
So whatever bit of positivity, right at the end that we can get, I'm willing to grab at it. So if it's going to be a 10 naira decrease, let's have it at this point. And it doesn't mean I'm becoming complicit or anything regarding the situation that we find ourselves in, this economic,
It's like going to an Instagram vendor and you buy a dress, and the dress normally is 7,000 naira. You know those Black Friday sales? That's not really a sale per se.
Increase it.
And then they that's what it is. That's how I see it as, But, and I don't think it has any effect on the on the macroeconomic speed until this a significant portion. Okay.
Do you know something else, Judith? I think we owe it to ourselves to take care of our mental state. And the amount of complaint and suffering that we have had to go through in 2021, it's driving me mad. Sorry, 24. See, I'm going mad. It drives me mad. So in order to try and get my sanity, any bit of positivity that comes my way, I will celebrate it. It doesn't mean that I'm saying, okay, everything can just go as it is. I will protest if I have to, if I'm not being treated nicely. But for the next 1 week, and I implore everybody else to actually try, grab onto every single piece of,
I'm gonna just
positivity. Yeah, this is my motivation. This is my TED Talk.
Because if I'm going to go and buy 1,050 naira fuel, from how much? And then I'll go and fuel in my generator to cut hairs. I should not reduce for 85 naira from their own price of haircuts. Please, let's be realistic here. I want 500 naira per liter. Don't stress me.
This is the end for Breakfast Extra for a Saturday edition. She'll be back with the rants tomorrow. In fact, beginning at the show, at the start of the show. So do stay tuned throughout here on News Central and join us again for Breakfast Extra, 8 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Bye.
7 a.m. Why did I say 7?
You see, you need to go. Bye.